Picture this, a hospital room, late at night. A patient's panicked call light goes on, and there's a mysterious figure standing in the corner. So today, we're going to break down the viral horror story, The Ghost of Room 4, to figure out the simple but totally brilliant techniques that make it so incredibly scary.
It all kicks off with this single, terrifying question whispered in the dark. What does she want? And just like that, with zero context, you're thrown right into the patient's fear. Who is she? And way more importantly, what could she possibly want in a hospital room in the middle of the night? And the setting? It's pure classic horror. But it's not some old haunted house. Nope, we're in a place where we're already vulnerable. A hospital. And the time? 3 a.m., the witching hour. It's that time when our defenses are at their absolute lowest, and every shadow starts to look like a threat.
So, our story really gets going with a chilling call. We've got a travel nurse named Sheila, and for her, what's supposed to be just another routine night shift is about to get completely shattered by one single, insistent call bell.
The call comes from a patient named Mary, but this isn't your typical call. She doesn't need pain meds, she doesn't need water. She claims there's someone else in the room with her, a woman, just standing there silently in the corner.
Now, Sheila, of course, tries to rationalize it. There are only two nurses on the floor, herself and her coworker, Stacy. So when Sheila suggests it must be Stacy, Mary is firm, no, the other one. And boom, with those 4 words, the tension just skyrockets, because there is no other one.
And this right here, this is the story's central conflict. You've got these two competing realities. On one hand, you have the nurse's logic. There are only 2 of us here. And on the other, the patient's absolute terror. There is a third person in this room, and she is real. So, is Mary just confused, or is she seeing something that Sheila can't?
So Sheila, being a good nurse, she does her due diligence. She checks the whole room. She even looks in the bathroom, finds absolutely nothing. She reassures Mary, tells her she was probably just dreaming, and promises to stay right outside at the nurse's station.
But that reassurance, it meant nothing. Because when Sheila goes to check on Mary a few hours later, the patient is dead. And suddenly the whole mystery of the woman in the corner isn't just some strange story anymore. It's a tragedy.
But the story? It doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. We flash forward 3 months. Sheila is back at the very same hospital, and that chilling encounter is about to repeat itself with terrifying precision.
The stage is just perfectly set for a terrifying repeat performance. It's like a cruel twist of fate. Sheila gets pulled back to the exact same unit, and she's assigned the very same room where Mary died. Her new patient, a man named Mr. Howard, is described as very alert and oriented. And that is such a crucial detail because it pretty much removes any doubt of him just being confused.
And then it hits. 3 a.m., the witching hour. Just like before, the call light flicks on. You can feel the pattern repeating. And you just know deep down something awful is about to happen. And it's the exact same report. From a completely different patient, Mr. Howard asks Sheila why this woman keeps coming into his room and just standing in the corner. This proves the haunting wasn't just a one-time thing, it's tied to the room itself.
When you lay the 2 events out side by side like this, the evidence is just undeniable. Same room, same time, same spectral figure. This isn't a patient's confusion anymore. This is a pattern. This is a haunting.
Okay, so who is this woman in the corner, and what does she want? Well, the story finally gives us an answer, and it shifts from this supernatural mystery to a very, very human tragedy.
A completely terrified Sheila finally confides in her coworker, Stacy, and this is where it all comes out. Stacy knows something about this room, some dark piece of the hospital's past that explains everything.
And here it is, the truth. The ghost isn't some ancient evil demon. She was a nurse at that very hospital back in the 90s, and she was completely crushed by stress and overwork until one night she died on the bathroom floor of that exact room. The haunting is the tragic echo of her final moments.
All right, so now that we know the whole story, let's kind of look under the hood a little bit. What are the specific techniques that make this really simple narrative so powerful and so frightening?
It's a pretty simple story when you think about it, told with very few details. So what is it about this specific recipe of elements that just gets under our skin so much? Let's break down the key ingredients.
What's so brilliant is how all these simple pieces lock together. It starts by taking a really mundane setting, a hospital, and twisting it into a place of total dread. It then adds the classic witching hour, which plays on our deep, primal fear of the dark. Then, the story very cleverly gives us a credible witness. Mr. Howard isn't confused. He's alert and oriented, which basically forces us to accept what he's seeing. And the ghost herself, she's not some monster. Her origin is this deeply relatable human tragedy of burnout, which makes her sympathetic, and somehow, even scarier. And finally, the threat is never really seen. By just describing her as a figure in the corner, the story basically weaponizes our own imagination against us.
So at the end of the day, the story's real power comes from how it plugs into a common, real-world anxiety. I think a lot of us can imagine that feeling of being helpless and vulnerable in a hospital bed. This story just takes that feeling and gives it a terrifying, supernatural form.
And that is the real horror here, isn't it? The ghost in room 4 isn't terrifying because she's a monster. She's terrifying because she was a person. She's the echo of real-world pain and stress, a ghost born not from some ancient evil, but from human suffering.
Which, leaves us with one last, really unsettling thought. Every old building has a history, right? Every room has a past. It kind of makes you wonder, what unseen stories, what echoes of joy or pain do the very walls around us hold?